So Samsung's business is everywhere in the world. Hyundai, Lucky, LG. So I think I'm not sure the big Korean companies can survive without their international businesses. And so they may be headquartered in Korea, but they may manufacture in China or the Philippines or in India. They sell their products in the US and in Japan, in Europe. And so even if you don't want to be social in your headquarters, I think you have no choice but to do that with your overseas employees. So I think once people begin to do that, it sets a way to change internal operations. And frankly, I've heard the same question from some of the big Japanese companies who, for years, dealt differently in Japan than they did around the world. But increasingly, they're asking the question of how they become more global in the way they operate. And so I think social is part of that answer for how you become a more global, interfere with the balance between work and life. It can take away privacy, but I think it's a matter of having not only technology but also policy. So at IBM, we have strict policies around business conduct, and that applies to the way you work on social networks. And so we train people on how they should behave in social networks. I think for personal life it's a mixed thing, because I know in my own life, 20 years ago, if I had to work on the weekend, I had to drive to my office. And 10 or 15 years ago, if I had to work on the weekend, I had to sit at home with my PC. And now, there are times I can be available for a customer on the weekend, and I can be out of the house at some event and use my mobile phone or my tablet. So it's true that my phone rings sometimes, and so sometimes you have to learn to shut off your phone and not read your social feed. But I think that's no different than not being in the office all the time. It's actually easier. So it's not, I think there's no magic way. And I have read studies saying that people are more relaxed when they have their social capability on their mobile device than when they don't. On the other hand, I think we've all observed people sitting next to each other in a restaurant, not talking to each other, and both working on their mobile phones, which I think over time people will decide not to do. But market position for social in the industry, and Microsoft and especially SAP are kind of nowhere in the market. So I think they aspire to be in the market. I think Microsoft, with the acquisition of Yammer, kind of admitted that they needed help in getting into the social market, and I still don't know whether they've figured out how to integrate Yammer with their other products. And SAP recently bought what is it? Jam, I think is the name of it.
It's called Jam.
Yeah, they basically bought some social networking stuff that they're using with success factors, but it really doesn't have any market presence yet. I think we have the most comprehensive, widely adopted, enterprise-level social capabilities, since they're very successful companies. But I'll tell you what I think we learned at IBM about adopting social. I think it's important to know why you're adopting social. And at IBM, it's, I think, for two big reasons. One, we're committed to the success of our clients, and we think social helps us be more responsive to our clients all around the world. So that's one reason. Second, we're committed to pioneering new technologies, and we think social helps our engineers and researchers collaborate better and have more innovative ideas. So we measure our success in social in our ability to serve our customers better. And so we deployed, for example, client hubs so that everybody who's working, say, on Samsung, whether they're in the US or whether they're in Germany or whether they're in Korea, can see what the account team's doing on Samsung. Hopefully you use it in dealing with Samsung in Korea. For our engineering, we make it very clear who the experts are in different technologies so they can find each other around the world, and so they can more easily collaborate with each other and coordinate their work. So social in the abstract, I think, not so important. Social applied to a real business problem is incredibly important. And so every company is going to have, or every organization is going to have their own business problem that they want to solve. For example, the Salvation Army uses social in a big way. And the Salvation Army is a religion, and it's a charitable organization. And they use social to develop leadership in their religion, and they use social to better run their charitable services and get release to people who are victims of disasters. So their two goals are different than IBM's two goals. And they're successful because they apply their social to their goals. So whatever the goals are of Samsung and Hyundai, that's how they should apply social.
There is also other company like
7-Eleven. I know the Japanese chain stores like 7-Eleven and Sunrise. There must be an equivalent in Korea.
Yeah.
So very small chain of stores. We have a customer in Indonesia, I think a chain of 7 restaurants. And so they're able to share their best practices in the cloud with, it may only be 200 users. So much smaller than the big companies we've been talking about. But when you open, I don't know anything really about restaurant business, but I have some friends in it. When you open a new restaurant, your first restaurant, your second restaurant, by the time you get to the third, you're having trouble keeping up the procedures and the quality that you set in the first one that was successful. And so they're using social in order. There are some important things that we provide. We provide security. We provide privacy. We provide the ability to do analytics as your data grows large. And I think those things are important. Even if you're a small restaurant, You don't want your competitor reading what your special competitive formula is. So I think it's different than sharing pictures of your dog or your